Asuka's tits. That's the last patch. That is the last Tekken 8 patch in a nutshell. The last Tekken 8 patch, here it is, changed the body proportions of some characters, mainly the women characters, in their new swimsuit outfits. And shut up, DHK. And I want to talk about it a little bit. Because even though there's not a lot that's going on in this patch on the surface, I think that this general direction that they're going with just being willing to change body proportions like this to make the characters look better is a really good change that I think is important to talk about. So here you can see the GIF of Asuka between version 2.04 and 2.05. And what they did is they just changed some of her shoulder, and I don't know what these muscles are called. But they changed these things to make her look less like a giant and more, I guess, normal. It's not something that personally I really noticed before. But I did see when Harada was talking about in his tweet, which I'll talk about. People were pointing it out, and it definitely does look better now. And it wasn't just for Asuka as well, but it was for all of the women characters. And initially you look at this and it's just like they made the tits bigger, and they did. But again, from the Asuka one, they also changed some of the body proportions on the characters as well. Now, from what I've been told, I haven't verified this because I don't have the previous version of the game and I don't feel like re-downloading it and all of that stuff. These changes are only reflected in the swimsuit outfit, and they're not apparent in the other outfits. You can actually see here in the GIF, particular on Asuka, this change. And so I guess that the question that there is they buffed Asuka. They did buff Asuka. Yes. She no longer looks like a hunchback. Yes. And she does look a lot better. So it was a Guna buff. It was. Yes. She was built like a Soviet fridge. So where this it becomes a little bit perplexing, I suppose. And the main thing I want to talk about with this, where it becomes not just a thing with Asuka, but it also has to do with Miari, is that Harada made this tweet back about a month ago, and said this patch was going to come, saying that they're fixing a bug with character proportions like Asuka and others are being incorrectly compiled with the same values. And this is where Harada posted the screenshots of Miari. And a lot of people obviously latched onto the Miari thing, but then there was a lot of speculation about fixing character proportions. Obviously, Asuka's neck, which didn't get changed, is a big thing people were talking about. I don't think that people were expecting the entire change to be changing all of the women characters' boobs, but that's what it ended up being. Also, shout out to this guy in the tweet that that predicted the exact change they were going to make to Asuka. Good on him, and also shout out to all of the morons in his replies that were calling him a gooner or stupid. So the thing is that this is also a change that we can kind of see with Miari as well. And so I've talked about this a little bit on stream, so I'm not going to go too much, I'll go on about too much for this video, because I said this enough, and I'm just going to try keeping it streamlined. But this is Miari from the trailer, right? And then this is Miari in the screenshots. And what a lot of people were saying is that they, in the span of a week, completely changed Miari's character model. And that's not the case. While it appears that that's the case when you compare these side by side, the thing is that it's because of the camera angle, the lighting, and the way she's tilting her head. So I layered on another layer to and I rotated it so that's the same angle as her face and the same size and everything. And when you look at it like this, there's actually not that much of a difference. I'll zoom in for you here so you can see it a little bit better, but you can see that her face is actually very similar to what it was in the trailer. There obviously are changes. Her eyelids could just be that they took the screenshot while she was blinking or something, right? But there are a couple of changes, like the mole on her eye is in a different position than it is here. The side of her face is a little bit different. It's a little bit slimmer. But stuff like a main thing like her chin line and her jaw and all of that stuff is basically the same. Hair color might just be due to lighting, right? Obviously, there have been some changes with her hair, making it a little bit more flat. But these are very minor changes that they're making to the character model, and they're not, and maybe they're making changes to the overall game, like what they did in this last update with all of the women with the swimsuit outfits. And maybe that's the same thing that's going on with Miari as well. And the main point that I think is important to point out, and I think is really nice, is that they are taking a step to actually make the characters look better, right? So there's been a constant complaint in Tekken 8 since really the beginning that a lot of the characters just look bad. Maybe not so much the male characters, but the female characters, particularly because they look very generic and a lot of them look the same. And I think a lot of these complaints are unfounded. Like, remember when people were saying before Lydia released that Tekken 7 Lydia looked better than Tekken 8 Lydia, or Tekken 7 Lydia looks exactly the same as Nina, or sorry, Tekken 8 Lydia looks exactly the same as Nina, and all of this stuff. But it's certainly true that things like SSS, which they didn't change in this patch, do make the character models look worse because it takes away from some of their muscle. Obviously, the glaring thing being their belly buttons don't exist, and even with Asuka after the update, still the case. But when you look at these changes with Miari Zoe as well, it seems to me that this isn't just a one-off thing. They're actually taking the time to tweak the character models and maybe even tweak some of the faces to make the characters just look better. So here we see it just exclusively with Asuka and some of the proportions in this outfit. But I think the fact that they are willing and able to make these changes to the character model at all is a really good thing that they're doing, and I'm very happy to see them doing it. Obviously, there's more things that they should be working on with this, but it's something that's one step at a time. This is the first time they're making an update about this, and I think it's really nice that they're doing this. So I just wanted to sit down and talk about this real quick, just to say that I think this is a nice thing that they're doing, despite the fact that this is really a huge meme because they buffed their boobs. And that I hope they keep doing this more, because making characters stand out more and feel unique from everyone else is just one of those small little things that I think goes a really long way. Change the faces or dodge the change after the fact. Well, and that's why I wanted to point out with Miari as well, is that they are changing the face. Like, it's not like they completely changed their character model like people were saying, but they did make some minor adjustments in the same way they did with Asuka's body to Miari's face, right? It wasn't this huge, big thing where they completely changed the model, but they made some of these really small touches that add a lot. And I guess I will add this to the end of the video as well, because that's a good point. But like with Miari, the reason why I want to explain how this is such a good thing and want to see more is because of how much these little changes can have such a big impact. Look at the reception to Miari after Harada posted these screenshots, and I'm sure that these changes to Miari are in the same vein as the changes in the last patch, considering Harada was talking about in this patch with the screenshots, and how much it kind of transformed the character and people's perception on the character just by making these very minor tweaks with certain proportions in like her cheeks and stuff. And that's why I think it's important to point out and say that they should be doing more of this, because it's just one of those small things that can manifest into being something bigger and get people more excited and happy about the game, even though it's not balance changes or anything. Poor Asuka doesn't have a neck. Okay, and that's it. That's the end of the video. I won't say it's not important, but there are high priorities. Yeah, that's true. Like, I don't disagree with that. But here's the thing, though. If they are going to have time where they're not pushing balance updates because you have tournaments like EVO and stuff, which I think is completely valid, then that time can be spent doing something. You know, season 1, they just sat there and kind of did nothing for 6 months. Season 2, they did some stuff. They stopped because of EVO and everything, which again, I think is completely valid. And in the meantime, making these changes with character proportions and stuff, I think is a good use of that extra time. Because, you know, when it comes to game development as well, you like look at, I don't even need to explain about like making a bunch of updates without pushing them out for players to play and play test and everything, and then just bringing it out all in one big update. That's how you fuck up the game, and that's exactly what they did in Season 2. They made a bunch of changes throughout Season 1, didn't put those patches into the game at all throughout Season 1 because of Tekken World Tour and stuff, put them all in at once in Season 2, and then the game collapsed. So if they're going to have a break from making these patches and balance changes, they can't just continue doing that behind the scenes continuously, because then you're going to get the same situation in Season 2. So if they're not doing that because they're taking a break from it, then I think this is a good thing to focus on, my opinion.